We're gonna live with you. I was in the process of buying a house under my name and getting ready to move when out of the blue, my mother-in-law, who had just barged into our place, came up with an outrageous idea. I'd been relentlessly bullied by her. Every time I visited their house, I was made to work like a mule. Though my father-in-law never did anything himself, he seemed to be riding along without stopping his wife. She probably intends to live with us and exploit me. Determined not to let this happen, I revealed a shocking fact to them. Huh? I'm single, you know? Upon realizing that I was single, my in-laws were flustered, but they continued to badmouth me. Someone who was witnessing this got even more furious. My name is Jessica, and I'm 33 years old. I work as a regular employee in a major company. My husband also works in the same company, and we've been married for 2 years. I met my husband at a company party, and it seems he fell for me at first sight. He asked around to find out which department I was in and started making moves on me. Initially, I wondered who he was, but seeing him come to see me and invite me out every day, I felt reassured and thought it might be fun to be with someone who pursues me so persistently. I accepted his confession. After dating for about 2 years, we happily tied the knot. We were supposed to have started a blissful married life. Life with my husband was going really smoothly. Since we both worked at the same company, it was easy to coordinate schedules, we shared household chores, and we even went on trips occasionally. I truly feel grateful for marrying him. Except for one thing. That would be my husband's parents. When we visited them before our marriage, they seemed very kind. And I thought we could build a good relationship. But as it turns out, they were quite the opposite. It was some time after we got married. My husband and I happened to have a day off together, so we decided to spend it relaxing at home. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could that be? We didn't expect any visitors or deliveries that day, so I was curious about who it was. My husband said, "I'll get it," and headed towards the door as if he knew the visitor. Well, this is a spacious apartment. But there sure are a lot of stairs, it's hard with my bad knees. Oh my, Jessica, you're lounging in sweats on your day off? Please don't embarrass my son with such a casual look. Entering the living room with my husband were my in-laws. Without saying anything, they just sat themselves down on the couch. As you can see, they had an attitude, often making snide remarks towards me, acting as if they deserved respect. While my father-in-law never directly caused any harm, he seemed to be riding along with his wife's behavior. Hey, why'd you invite them on our day off? We had plans to relax together, remember? Sorry, they just insisted, and I couldn't say no. Ugh. Fine, but you could have told me. I've always faced various harassments from my mother-in-law. Every time something happened, I consulted my husband, so he's aware that things aren't great between me and his parents. But, since he's an only child and feels the duty to honor his parents, he's hardly ever stood up to them on my behalf. Good grief, can't modern wives even serve a simple cup of tea? While my husband and I whispered to each other, my mother-in-law loudly and indirectly demanded tea. Even though she came over unexpectedly, they're such shameless people. I'm sorry, I'll get it ready right away. Normally, you'd have it ready before we arrived. I started preparing the tea in the kitchen while ignoring my mother-in-law's snide remarks. They ended up staying at my place until the evening. Because of that, I had to prepare lunch for them too. This ruined my day off, but there are other bad experiences with them. One day. Hey, Jessica. What? My mom's having a tea party this weekend and has invited some neighbors and relatives. She wants us to come too. Honestly, I didn't want to go. I knew if I went, they would make me do all sorts of chores. However, if I didn't go, I knew she would make snide comments about me later. Considering the situation, I figured it might be less stressful to help out than to face her remarks, so I reluctantly decided to attend. I wish my husband would just decline on our behalf, but I knew it would be pointless to say that. Then, on the day of the tea party, we were called in earlier than the starting time. Hello. You're late. It's common courtesy to arrive 20 minutes early. Oh, come on, Mom. The roads were busy. Cut her some slack. David, you can relax. Jessica, get to work right away. I'm furious at how sweet she is to my husband, but how tough she is on me. As I expected, I ended up preparing all the treats for the tea party. It's not that I can't cook, I do it all the time. But the quantity she demanded was just too much, and it took a long time. During that time, she just sat and watched TV without helping at all. The treats are ready. Really, Jessica? It took you this long just to make a few snacks. You're too slow. Even though she's never properly made snacks herself, she had the nerve to make such snide remarks. Considering the amount she demanded, I finished making them in a relatively short time, yet she never thanked me at all. Furthermore, I realized she deliberately increased the quantity to hassle me. For the record, while my husband and father-in-law were preparing cushions and chairs for the guests, they didn't help me with the cooking. She made several other snide remarks while I was preparing, but I tried to ignore them for the sake of my sanity. Then, the tea party began. Many of her friends and relatives gathered. For me, this was pure torture. Whenever guests complimented the snacks, she would say, "I made them." I was a bit unsure, but I'm glad you liked them. Even though she didn't help at all, she took credit for my work. Moreover, when the topic of discussion shifted to daughters-in-law, she made up stories, saying things like, "My daughter-in-law treats me like a slave." It was very uncomfortable for me. After the tea party ended, I had to clean up everything, and she even asked me to clean the room. I felt like a maid. Holding back tears, I thought to myself, I'm never coming here if she calls me again. But life wasn't that easy. The tea party seemed to be a big hit, and it became a regular event. Especially, many said that they loved the snacks. Jessica, there's another tea party next weekend. Please come. But I have work that day. You can take a day off, right? Are you trying to embarrass me? If you don't come, I'll make sure you get divorced. She called me unexpectedly and insisted I come. Even when I said I had work, she showed no mercy. I didn't have the courage to oppose her and felt threatened by the possibility of divorce, so I always obliged, taking days off from work. As a result, I ended up working tirelessly for these tea parties and taking frequent leaves from work, which made things uncomfortable at my workplace. I was mentally drained. Whenever I discussed this with my husband, he just said, "Come on, she doesn't mean any harm. Just let it go." He never really helped. Before I knew it, I found myself constantly pondering how to break free from this miserable life. The answer I came up with was to get a divorce. It meant separating from my husband, David. Honestly, I grappled a lot with the decision. Even though I felt betrayed by David not helping me, a part of me still loved him. But I didn't want to continue a life tormented primarily by my mother-in-law. By divorcing, David and I would essentially become strangers, eliminating the need to interact with my in-laws. The only remaining issue was whether David would agree to the divorce. "I don't want a divorce." "What's gotten into you all of a sudden?" he asked. "I can't stand dealing with your mom anymore. You know what our relationship with her is like, right? I get it, but that doesn't mean we have to divorce. I love you, Jessica, and I want to be with you forever. I feel the same, but I can't bear it any longer. How about we get a divorce on paper, live separately, but still stay in touch and maintain our relationship? What do you think?" Hesitantly, David agreed. And so, due to the malicious actions of my mother-in-law, we ended up getting a divorce. Life post-divorce was truly peaceful. Having submitted our divorce papers gave me the push to change my cell phone model and number, which stopped the incessant calls from my mother-in-law. David continued to live in our previous apartment, while I rented a new one, ensuring unexpected visits from my in-laws ceased. Life without interacting with my in-laws was great, but something was missing. The married life with David. Even after the divorce, our mutual affection meant neither of us was satisfied living apart. Then, an idea struck me. It was a risky plan, but I decided to give it a shot. As a first step, I immersed myself in my work more than ever before. Before the divorce, I'd often take time off due to dreadful tea parties, but after explaining my situation to my colleagues post-divorce, I regained their trust by dedicating myself fully to work. Eventually, I achieved a savings of $500,000. Since college, I had enjoyed saving money, dreaming of buying my own home someday. Having finally saved up $500,000, I felt confident about buying a decent home. I quickly reached out to David to discuss buying our dream house. A house? It's gonna cost a lot. How are you gonna handle that? Don't worry about it. I've saved up. How about we visit some show houses on our next day off? And so, we planned a day to visit show homes. David, amazed by my savings, expressed his gratitude, making me feel my efforts had paid off. By the way, let's not tell your parents about the house just yet. We'll inform them when the time is right. Got it. Knowing them, they might make things complicated. Reaffirming our wish to get back together, we steadily made preparations for our dream home. After some time, we visited various model houses, discussing preferences like, "It'd be nice to have an outlet here, I prefer this kitchen layout, and I'd like a kitchen with a view of the living room." Considering future children, we kept their needs in mind. Finally, the blueprint was completed and construction began. Discussing the budget with the contractor, we made sure it stayed within $500,000. Our house is gonna be here. David mused. I'm excited. Speaking of which, have you made up your mind about our plan? For us to live happily in our new home, it was crucial to ensure there'd be no interference from David's parents. David needed to either convince them to keep their distance or cut ties altogether. I'm sorry, I just can't make up my mind yet. You know, I'm an only child. Of course, I understand all the terrible things Mom did, but I owe her for raising me, and I'm worried about what'll happen to her if I'm not around. I can't forgive my in-laws, but I do understand how David feels. Well, it's up to you, David. I bought the house under my name, and since we're divorced, you don't have to force yourself to come here. I let him know. Now, it's up to David to decide. We parted ways that day. I had some time before the new house was ready, so I got back to work and slowly prepared for the move. Regardless of David's choice, I was ready to give his parents a hard time. Either way, my plan seemed to be working out. After getting home from work that day, I continued my moving preparations. Then, my phone buzzed, indicating a new message. It was from David. Good job! Seeing the message from David, I smirked. Things were looking like they'd head towards the best possible future. After a while, my dream house was completed. It turned out great, just the way I wanted it. Seeing the finished home made me realize the magnitude of this purchase. But, just because the house was ready doesn't mean I was content. The real challenge was about to begin. Since I had been preparing to move even before the house was ready, the movers smoothly transported all my stuff to the new place. After the move, I went to the apartment where I used to live, and where David now lived alone. I sat at the dining table in the living room and soon heard a flurry of noises from the entrance. The moment had come. David brought his parents. It's been a while. Why haven't you invited us over? Young folks these days have no manners. The ever-complaining in-laws headed towards the living room. As soon as they saw me, Jessica. We heard you were on a long business trip, but you're here. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Sorry about that. I just got back yesterday and was too busy to reach out. Of course, I never said anything about a business trip. I had lied to them for this very moment. Well, all right. But you bought a house, right? And spent a lot of money? It's pretty spacious. Maybe we should live with you. As expected, my mother-in-law latched onto the house purchase. She claims she's doing us a favor by moving in, but it's clear she just wants to boss me around. Indeed, living with you two would be more comforting. You bought the house for us, right? I had to bite my tongue to not laugh out loud at my father-in-law's remark. David silently observed the situation. Please take a seat, we need to discuss this. I served them tea as they sat down. "Oh, finally being hospitable," my mother-in-law said, taking a sip of her tea. I thought, this is the last time I'll entertain them. "Now, about that new house." "Exactly. You bought it for us, right? I'm looking forward to living with you too. But I'm single, you know?" I hadn't told the in-laws that we'd divorced. To dodge my mother-in-law's unreasonable demands, I had lied about going on a long business trip. "Single? What do you mean? Aren't you married to David? What nonsense is this? Are you making fun of us?" Upon hearing the truth, they were furious. "Exactly as I said. David and I are divorced, so I'm single. The house is under my name, so you can't live there. I decide who lives in my house. We never heard about any divorce. And the sudden business trip seemed fishy. Thanks to you, I've been made a fool of. Watch your actions, young lady, and take responsibility. So you betrayed not just us, but David too?" Divorcing was the right decision. When I firmly stated that I couldn't live there, my in-laws bombarded me with sarcastic remarks and complaints. Hearing this, my husband David finally lost his temper. "Enough. Stop badgering Jessica. Back off." My in-laws were shocked into silence, apparently not expecting such an outburst from their own son. The reason we were heading for a divorce in the first place was because of you two. "That's a cruel thing to say. I was only thinking of Jessica." "Thinking of Jessica? After constantly belittling her and forcing her to attend those ridiculous tea parties where she was treated like a servant, making her miserable. How is that thinking of Jessica? Jessica isn't your convenient maid. She's my cherished wife. And because of you two, our life together is a mess. Stay out of our relationship." On the day we were packing for the move, I received a message from David. "I'm really sorry for everything. I've decided to cut ties with my parents." I had thought that he didn't truly love me because he never helped out before. Hearing David's true feelings, I almost burst into tears. "I was their only child, so I thought they'd be lost without me. I owed them for raising me, so I never said anything. But I've reached my limit. I'm cutting ties. Don't come near Jessica and me ever again." Is that how you talk to your parents? People who hurt my beloved wife don't have the right to call themselves parents. Don't say that. I'll try to improve my relationship with Jessica. I didn't trust my mother-in-law's words at all. After hearing what David said, you can still say that? Do you want to hear this? I opened a voice memo on my phone and played a recording. It was a collection of the snide remarks my mother-in-law had made to me. There were also a few from my father-in-law. Their faces went pale as they listened. "If you try to approach us again, I'll take this to a lawyer. That's how it is, so please leave. And by the way, we've already canceled the lease on this apartment, so showing up unannounced won't do you any good." With that, David ushered his parents out, and they left dejectedly. That marked the end of our long struggle with my overbearing in-laws. Afterwards, David prepared for our move to our new home. Rumor has it that word got out in their community, and they became the talk of the town. I wondered who could have leaked it, only to find out David had told some close friends about the situation to ensure his parents wouldn't overstep their bounds again. I hadn't thought of that, so I almost gave David a standing ovation. For my part, David and I reconciled, resubmitted our marriage license, and are happily back together. The strategy one had in mind worked perfectly. Now, we're comfortably settling into our dream home. It was quite an investment, and given the uncertain circumstances when we bought it, I was nervous. But living here happily with David, I feel it was worth every penny. And then... No way! What's up? Look at this! Is this? To our surprise, I was pregnant. Our future as a family of 3 in this house isn't far away. Though challenges lie ahead, we want to be good parents to our child, learning from the mistakes of David's parents.